being a cop for 27 years, uh, they want you to do a job. They order you to go out and do your job, and so you use the only tools you have available to do your job. When you're dealing with violent people, you have to use violence. There's no other way to do it. But there's a percentage. The only thing they are going to understand is violence. The only thing the violent understand is greater violence and greater strength. I will take my stand on that. That's just the way it is. I retired from the Marine Corps as a first sergeant. I know about leadership. It's branded into your head. How to get the willing obedience of your men. In the filth and stench and destruction of the battlefield, where men are driven to the limits of human endurance. That's where the leadership comes out of. What men were able to rise up out of that and still get what needs to be done, where people will follow them when the consequences could be death.
What is your opinion, and maybe you don't have one, the way that hiring is done for law enforcement today versus probably when you came in? Do you see that there's been a bigger focus on guys having a crystal clear background, or guys with college degrees, or guys with a certain amount of education versus guys with a military background or some sort of tactical experience? It seems to me like we're still functioning on kind of an antiquated hiring system where we're overlooking men coming out of the military, overlooking men with the potential skills to be good cops or to be good first responders because they have the backbone or they have the stomach for it, but those are the guys that are being turned away. Maybe you could speak on that.
I tell you, just is a typical example of what I have seen in law enforcement. Let's say you get to a call first, you're there, the door's open to the house, a woman screaming, help, help, you hear glass breaking, you hear kids crying. And you know what happens in a lot of law enforcement? They have two answers: bigger perimeter, more units. How about get the hell in the dang house?
Or they freeze entirely and don't move.
Before this woman gets beaten, raped, or stabbed. I don't care if the bad guy gets away. Get in the heck in the house and get in there now. This whole school shooting things, Columbine High School changed the law enforcement culture. But in order to have men who will do that, and I used to hear this all the time, the bottom line is going home at the end of the day. No, it's not. The bottom line is upholding the honor of that badge you're wearing. That's what the bottom line is.
Yeah.
What if a Marine in a combat zone, the bottom line is going home at the end of the day, and a machine gun has his men pinned down? And you know what? Let's say not everybody's equal. Let's say some people don't have quite the ability to do that. Oh, okay, I'm okay with that to a degree. But then when the people who will do it, you penalize them, you criticize them. What?
Or the guys that are willing to do it never get the job in the first place.
Yeah, either way. You look at the character traits of greater physical strength, a capacity for aggression, a capacity for violence. Yes, assertiveness.
Bravery, assertiveness, leadership.
And all these are morally neutral qualities. They can be used either for noble purposes or they could be used for evil purposes. You can have someone who's a bully, someone who preys on those weaker than them. Or they can be used for noble purposes. You protect the weak and the helpless. They want you to do a job. They order you to go out and do your job.
The public requires or demands that job to be done.
Right? And so you use the only tools you have available to do your job. When you're dealing with violent people, you have to use violence. There's no other way to do it. And then these people who are telling you to go out and do that, the mayor, the city council, they would never do it. They're not going to go out and face those violent people. We don't mind doing it. Yeah. And then they hang us out to dry.
Because like we said earlier, the biggest fear, at least in my opinion, has not been the bad guys, the evildoers. It's been retaliation from my management or the government or whoever, you know.
And the only victims are the poor people. All these people advocating this, they live they make triple figure incomes. They have they live behind walls. They have their own security, so they don't care. Yeah. But the people who are vulnerable, who are being preyed on by these predators, having their businesses ruined, burnt down to the ground, they'll never recover, a lot of them. And they have this masquerading as, I'm so righteous, I'm concerned for the poor. What a bunch of liars. And they continue to try to deconstruct some of the fundamental things that society needs to stay safe. And here's where I think this is going to lead. and again, I'll take both my careers, my Marine Corps career, and so 47 years dealing with in professions where violence happens
Or as a necessity.
as a necessity. And most people you can reach, like say as a cop on an emergency situation, you can reach by reasoning with them, showing them some compassion, showing them some mercy, trying to love them in the midst of their enslavement if they're addicted to drugs or whatever. But there's a percentage. The only thing they are going to understand is violence. The only thing the violent understand is greater violence and greater strength. I will take my stand on that. That's just the way it is. I'm looking at the wall. Got this poster up on the wall. And I'm looking at this poster. I say, hey, Corporal so-and-so, who the hell is that? Oh, Gunny, that's Boy George. I said, well, what is he, a boy or a girl? He said, well, that's just it, Gunny, we don't know. You don't know? And you get... I ripped the thing off the wall, I turned it into shreds, tear it into shreds, and I said, listen, when I was your age, I had a picture of John Wayne at San Iwo Jima, sighting down an M1 Garand. That's the posters I had.